you're waiting for the rains to start your backyard garden, stop waiting and start now. The rainy season may seem like the ideal and best time to start growing food because there'll be lots of water, and rainwater has lots of nitrogen and oxygen, which is good for your plants. However, in my little experience, I have come to realize that the dry season is actually one of the best times to start a garden, especially if you're a beginner. During the dry season, your garden will not be as green as you would want it, and it will not be as full as you would desire, but you will have quality produce. When we started gardening and the rains were almost coming to a halt, we wanted to put our garden on hold and wait till the next rains. But on a second thought, we decided to continue gardening through the harmattan, through the dry season, just to experience that season and see how things would turn out. And surprisingly, most of our produce which struggled, or which we couldn't even, in fact, some of the produce we didn't even get to harvest one thing. There were some things in our garden that we didn't even get to harvest one item. Surprisingly, most of those things did very well during the dry season. For instance, our cabbages. We had a number of cabbages in the garden. We had red cabbage and the green cabbages, and they were just struggling during the rainy season. We did everything we were told to do. We used our organic pest control solution to spray as often as we could. We visited the garden as often as we could. We nourished our soil, but they were just not doing any, like the cabbages were just not doing well. They were eaten by worms. As soon as the cabbage starts forming at the center, we would keep an eye on them, but still, some way, somehow, they'll get eaten by worms. Surprisingly, this dry season, we've had the best and healthiest cabbages we've ever had. In fact, I was surprised when I saw them growing very well. They were so full, so firm. Harvested like about 3 green cabbages so far. We still have some red cabbages which we'll be harvesting. What I've come to realize is that during the rainy season, the weather condition is perfect and conducive for pests to reproduce and even spread from one part of the garden to another easily. Because there were times you would have an issue at one side of the garden, and then the next day you wake up and it's somewhere else, and you're wondering, like, how did this happen overnight? However, in the dry season, you will deal less with pests. I haven't spotted any worms in our garden since we started. Like I said, our cabbages turned out really great. If we had worms, I'm sure we would have had to deal with the same situations we dealt with during the rainy season. And we haven't had to deal with so many aphids and spider mites like we did during the rainy season. I am not saying you won't deal with pests and diseases during the dry season. You will, but it wouldn't be as much as you would have to deal with during the rainy season. So imagine you're just starting out gardening and you already have a lot of worms to deal with. It will become overwhelming to the point that you wouldn't even want to continue, or you would stop before you even get started. So what better time than to start during the dry season, when you can really have control over the situation and have ample time to learn and study and get to know more about these plants and pests while you wait on the rainy season. And when that time comes, you are fully prepared and equipped to handle whatever that comes your way. Another good thing about gardening during the dry season is that you will be compelled to only grow things that you will need and use in your household. During the rainy season, it is overwhelming. Like, because you have free water and the plants are doing well, you literally want to plant everything. You go online and you see people planting things and you just go like, oh, this looks beautiful, let me plant it. Oh, this looks easy to grow. This looks easy to grow, let me try it out. Well, when we started, we wanted to do everything, wanted to try out everything. We did that because we wanted to learn. It was like a learning experience for us, which I don't regret. But then when you are doing this during the dry season, you are forced to stick to what you need because you don't have a lot of water and you don't have all the time in the world. So you would only grow what you need. At the moment, we are dealing with cabbages, arugula, celery, Swiss chard, kale, sweet potatoes. We had some sweet potatoes sprouting in our storeroom, so we decided to plant those, and some few onions that we had also sprouting in our kitchen. We have those also in the garden. So right now we are not dealing with things that we don't need or things we want to just plant because we want to plant them, or things we want to study or know more about. We are going strictly with what we use in the house and what we need in the house. Gardening during the dry season, you will have no or fewer weeds to deal with. If you are a gardener, you know that this is one of our headaches. Like, having fewer weeds is fine, but then when you have like bushy weeds, like they're so thick You probably walking through can be difficult, or even not just walking through, but being able to see what's on the ground so that you don't step on something and hurt yourself is a big deal. So I have realized that during the dry season, that is the least on your mind. Even if you would have to weed probably once every 3 weeks, maximum 3 weeks, or even once a month, that you would have to deal with weeds in your garden. But during the rainy season, you have a lot of weeds to deal with on a regular basis. It's like every few days you have to clear weeds in your garden, especially if they are like an obstacle in your activities. You have to be dealing with them regularly. And imagine, like I said, imagine you're a beginner and the little time you have on your hands, you want to enjoy this experience, you want to enjoy this process, you want to spend time with your plants. But here you are with little time and still having to deal with weeds constantly. If you're someone who wants to start and you don't have the time, please don't wait for the rains. I know if you have water, let me repeat that again. If you have water and you can do something small, start it now. Don't wait for the rains. However, if you feel you don't have water or you just still want to wait for the rains, fair enough. You can wait for the rains. But if you have the resources to start now, start your garden now. Gardening during the dry season also attracts a lot of pollinators to your garden. We did have a lot of butterflies and bees coming to the garden, but this dry season, we've seen a lot more. During the dry season, there isn't a lot of water and food out there, but because you have created this friendly ecosystem behind your home or around your home, they are attracted to your garden. The bees, for instance, are so attracted to our compost bins because we dump a lot of sweet things in there, pineapples, watermelons, like fiber from juices we've made, and pawpaws, like generally sweet things, orange peels and other stuff like that. And even apart from the sweet things that you may just throw around in your garden, the pools of water that collect around the garden when you water, of course they need some water for survival, so they come for that as well. So you have more of them coming around because, like I said, during the rainy season, having all of that is very common. They can easily find water, they can easily find other plants with flowers and all of that. So if you want to have your flowers getting pollinated, you definitely have to start your garden now because you would have more pollinators coming around. Even the birds, we've seen more birds this dry season compared to the rainy season. They come around in their numbers morning, afternoon, evening. They eat our tomatoes. The few tomatoes plants we have in the garden, they literally like just feast on them, and we allow them to because we are glad that we have created a space that these birds and insects feel safe to come to. During the rainy season, you know, there are these nights that it would pour so heavily, like the rains will be so heavy that all you're thinking about is your plants. Like, what is happening in my garden? Has the water swept away my plants? Has the water destroyed my whole garden? You wake up and the first thing you want to do is rush out and go out and see your babies. It was one of the things we were dealing with during the rainy season, constantly worrying about the state of our plants. Or even probably we're not even around, we've traveled, but then we know it's raining heavily back home. It was like a big worry to us. I don't remember the last time I had to worry about that. Ever since we went into the dry season, I don't worry about that because I know we control the amount of water we give our plants. But with the rains, you can't do that. You can't control how much or how little it rains. And you could wake up and see your garden flooded. And in the next few hours, the clouds are gathering again. Just when you are trying to see how to handle the situation or trying to see what you can do to protect your babies, the clouds are gathering again. So with the dry season, you do have a lot of control over how much water you give your plants. Plants need water, but not so much. I think for those who are in gardening already, we see what a lot of water can do to some of these plants. Too much of everything is bad. But when it's rainy season, you don't have so much control over that. Unless then you're going to put some major things in place to reduce the amount of water that gets or falls on your plants. But if you don't have those, you are left at the mercy of the weather and you can't do much about it. But in the dry season, you do have some amount of control. If you're waiting for the rains, stop waiting and start now. And to my beginners, this is the time. Start now, start small, take baby steps, start with small things, fewer things, and progress when the rain starts. You would have learned so much about the things you want to grow, and then you can go full board. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.